Welcome in to the Triple Option. Today we hope to do more than 6 minutes.
What?
Yesterday we had a computer snafu with Pierre Nugent. It wasn't his computer. It was our computer. We had a snafu.
CloudStrike.
Yeah. I blame CloudStrike, even though we're Apple. We're
yes.
Apple, so I don't think that's necessarily a thing. But yeah, CloudStrike. You know what? I made fun of
CrowdStrike.
CrowdStrike. I made fun of them, so they hit back.
Yeah.
They hit back. I shouldn't make fun. Well, I'm flying Southwest also this week to go to Nashville.
Unbelievable turn of events for that company.
I know, right? So
we simply did not update our computers, so we're still up in the air.
Yeah.
We were simply living in the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Worked out for us, dummies.
You make fun of Windows 95,
Yeah.
but guess what?
Yeah.
You can email that complaint to Southwest Airlines at altavista.net.
Yeah, I was going to say Windows Vista. Still running on an AOL account.
Yeah. You can IM us. Please do that. Southwest Airlines, we're the only people still on it.
It's just your ticket stubs are printed off on Microsoft Paint.
Yeah. But no, that's a weird thing. I got caught up. And I got lucky. So a couple years ago when that happened, it was Amanda had gone up to Nashville before me, and then we had to go and work at the Armed Forces Bowl, or as I like to call it, the worst day in the history of America. It was, I mean, not really for Air Force. It was a great day for them.
Oh, they had a hell of a day.
They had a great day. Emory was there that day. You weren't there that day? Yeah, Emory was there that day.
I wasn't. I stayed back in the studio.
Garrett was like, "Hey, my kids, blah blah blah."
Not supporting the troops, huh?
Yeah, blah. Like my
man.
kids, we've got something, and you're gonna need somebody back here in case everything goes wrong. And we were like, he's right. He's right. And guess what Garrett was doing that night? Snuggled up in a blanket,
enjoying myself,
enjoying his life. And me and Emory were cold. Like, I was cold from the minute I walked in out of my car. My hands never got warm again until I got to my hotel that night.
Yeah.
I woke up in the morning, got in the shower, and then I come out of the shower, and I have 45 phone calls from my wife. And it wasn't like I took a long shower. It was just like, all right. And she's like, where have you been? I'm like, I'm in the shower. And she's like, well, your flight's been canceled. I was like, huh? I just checked it. It was good before I got in. And she's like, yeah, it's been canceled. And so then it looked like all these Southwest flights were canceled. So then she found a first-class ticket,
Nice,
on American for $500, and then we found the return flight for the same amount for each of us. So for $1,500, which Southwest eventually paid for, we flew first class on American. Because coming back, we wouldn't have been able to get back either because they still weren't up and running a week later.
Because they have to give you a certain amount of 8 hours notice if they're going to cancel your flight. Anyway.
Yeah, there's all these laws that they have to follow now, which they didn't in the past because they live without repercussion. I just get this picture of a United Airlines guy doing 3 lines of blow and going, all right, here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna board the plane from the back to the front like we used to.
Right.
We're going to sell upgrade packages, and we're going to board them in groups. So row 1 can board the same time as row 12, as row 36. It's going to be wild, man. Just wait till you see it. People will be fighting over, just wait to the end. Just wait to the end. Wait to the end, right? And then it's going to be people shoving stuff in the overhead and fighting with the stewardess. Oh, it's going to be great. Give me another bump.
Southwest employees are doing ayahuasca. What if we all boarded whenever?
Yeah. By the way.
What if we all boarded unilaterally?
Yeah.
Then maybe you fight over a window seat.
Yeah. Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. If you go on the app, right on time, A, boarding group. If you get a little late, B.
Yeah.
If you're just negligent, then C, but you might find it might work out for you. You don't know. Yeah. That's life, man.
Or even if you wake up at 8 a.m. when your flight is and you immediately by 8:01 press reserve seat, it could give you C still. I don't know.
Yeah. You don't know. Or you know what we're going to do just in case you're super panic about it? $25.
Yeah.
A. Just $25. What do you think about that? $25. You want it?
The People's Republic of Southwest Airlines.
which then, collapses in on itself. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was nuts. I love that we get to start out with airline talk on any show.
What's the deal? Hey guys, have you seen this? Have you heard about this? Have you,
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Have you heard?
Whoa.
Have you heard about these airlines? These
Yeah,
airlines,
absolutely.
Southwest, Spirit. You don't even get to bring it back.
Spirit.
Spirit, you don't get to bring your shoes.
Spirit. Here's what I tell you about Spirit. They lost our bags one time.
Oh, really?
In Oxnard, which is not a shock. We aren't going to Cowboys training camp. And so if you go to another airline, like at LAX, American Airlines has their own luggage area. Spirit figured out what the international airlines do. They just rent a space because they only have a limited number of flights going in and out. So they don't have their own luggage thing. They farm it out. So my luggage is going to be in with, Korean Airlines and Qantas and all these other things that are international flights that have limited flights in and out of LAX a day.
Yeah.
And when you call that, and most of the airlines, they're pretty courteous about your luggage because they know that that's a big thing. We're going to get it back to you because we want you to fly again. So you call Southwest, American, United, Delta. Most of the time they're cool about it. But you call Spirit and the guy's like, bro, I don't know what you're all up in arms about this bag for. Well, dude, I have the pair of underwear that I have on.
Man, that really sounds like a you problem, brother.
Look, man, the Spirit thing is all the way over there.
Yeah.
I guess I could call Tony. Here's Spirit Airlines. Do you remember the animal control dudes on Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
That's Spirit Airlines. Those two dudes run Spirit Airlines. That's what it is. Just stoned dudes. Hey, there's a raccoon in my attic. And whoa. What do you want me to do about it?
That's wild, man.
What do you want me to do about it? Well, you're animal control, right? Yeah. Come and get it. Where?
I just have to imagine that all of Spirit Airlines customer help desk is one dude out of college named Chad.
Yeah.
And Chad may be at work. Chad may have some sick waves to catch that day. Yeah. Sorry, your bags are in Vancouver.
And they'll be in Vancouver until the surf goes down.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whenever. It could pop back up and then, they're in Seattle, but at least we got them in the States.
Yeah, exactly.
That's step one. So,
hope you rented a car. All of our flights are canceled.
Yeah. Kim Coulter says, I've done 2.7 million miles in America and had my bags delayed 30 or more times over the years. That said, they've never failed to get my bags to me. We got one of Craig's bags literally at the airport when we were leaving 10 days later.
Oof.
And then Smokey asked them, well, why wouldn't you call us? When did you have it? And they said 6 days ago. And it's why did you call us? And well, you told us to just leave it here. And we're like, why would anyone do that? Why?
Did you need something in this? What's so important?
Yeah. Look, changing your underwear is overrated. Wearing it. Psh, what are you, an elitist?
Yeah. I am at the point in my life, though, now where if, my bag, Caitlin's always just we're going to check the bag. And I am so worried about bags getting lost, but I'm a serial overpacker. Regardless, I am at the point in my life now where I kind of am agreeing with her, where I'm I guess I'll just everywhere has a Walmart, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I quite often in the carry-on have some underwear and socks.
Oh, yeah.
3
more pairs in case I crap my pants every day.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just
the trip.
That's just a pro tip. Royden, ACC Media Days are underway. Big Ten Media Days actually kicked off today in the fair city of Indianapolis. But we're going to talk about ACC Media Days. And yesterday, Jim Phillips came out on stage, and he has long been accused of a guy with his head in the sand. And I don't think he's done much until yesterday
to
disprove that. Actually, yesterday, he came out swinging in a way that shows that, I learned my lesson from George Kliavkoff. I'm not going to go down that Pac-12 road and be look, this is all going to work out. He took his shots at Clemson and Florida State, which they, from his perspective, they deserve. which I think they kind of deserve. Like, they're the ones here. And it's very funny to me, or very curious, the funny would be the thing, is that this is coming down to a fundamental argument of you signed this agreement 2 times. In 2011 or 2012, and in 2016, you agreed to renew it. So you knew it was going to be the grant of rights until 2036. And Florida State and Clemson cannot deny that. But what they are saying is, hey, guys, we all made a terrible mistake when that happened, and it is stupid that every other conference will have at 2036 renegotiated their media rights 3 times in between the times that we did ours. And they're going to go up, and we're going to stay the same. And Jim Phillips needs to find a way to bridge. Like, one thing I'm surprised he hasn't done is he hasn't found a way to bridge that gap with Florida State and Clemson by getting outside interest involved. Like, when you hear about private equity for individual schools, like, I can see Florida State doing that for sure. They're probably definitely going to do it. But, like, why is the ACC not looking for private equity like the Big 12 would be? And they might be. He's just not saying it. Like, why would you not try to do that and keep the conference together? There's so many questions, but I thought –
if you know you're already taking a bath on this, like, I have some qualms with bringing private equity into this in general. But, like, if you already know you're taking a bath on it –
well, I mean,
a last-ditch effort, Hail Mary. But
Brett Yormark used the word bespoke to the Big 12 when he was when he told us about
private equity.
Yeah, so it would be whatever deal we make would be specifically tailored to the Big 12. It wouldn't be like, well, this is what we did for Hooters, and this is what we did for Spirit Airlines, and this is what we did for.
Hooters might need its own shot of private equity.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think they have gotten it, which is why it's dipped in quality in the last few years. So, but, you know, like those kind of things, right? And I wonder where that goes. But I was impressed with Jim Phillips yesterday, how he came out swinging, which has not been the case for some conference commissioners in the face of the same thing. I mean, the way that you're reacting, do you think, like, come out swinging all you want, you're still, you know, walking on a rope bridge that's burning behind you?
Well, I mean, you just extended the plank a little bit longer.
Yeah.
You know, I think that nobody's blameless in this whole ACC thing. Jim Phillips, again, having his head in the sand. And look, I haven't paid attention to the media days as much as to peek behind the curtain of this show. You tell me what we're going to talk about the day that we're going to talk about it. And I haven't paid too much attention to what he's been saying, but just following the ACC stuff previously in general, I think that, you know, nobody's blameless in this whole thing. It is weird for Clemson and Florida State. You sign the deal is kind of the whole thing. Any business person will say, well, sorry, you know, and it you know, tough is what I believe that a lot of people or a lot of leadership in the ACC would say. But at the end of the day, it is silly that you have this crap deal where everybody else is going to go up and up and up in revenue and leave you in the dust. So in that way, if you want to cast blame on somebody, then those couple of schools or whoever's wanting to join Clemson and FSU in this can be like, well, no, look, we're just as good. We've had, you know, Clemson's won a national championship in the college football.
They've won 2.
Yeah, in the playoff era, and you know, Florida State won one in 2013, and so on and so forth. You've had success this century to point at to say that, look, if we just are on an equal footing, we can do this. You know,
Yeah.
The problem is
Who do you think is right?
I don't.
Let me ask you that, because I think they both have their valid points,
Right.
And I know that, like, I do think that if I took a poll of the chat room and said, do you believe Paul when he says he doesn't care where Florida State goes, the majority would say no.
Right.
I genuinely don't. And here's the thing. If they went from the ACC to the Big 12, the boring games that I don't like they play in the ACC would be easily replaced by some games I don't care about more or less, but I might like it better than most of the ones they play.
It would be a more interesting matchup if Florida State plays Arizona than if Florida State plays Wake Forest.
Yeah.
Straight up.
No offense to Wake Forest. It's just...
They've been okay, but you know what I'm saying.
That game is never... And even when they've both been
There's
good...
There's a novelty to what conference realignment with those few schools would do. Yeah. And there's a novelty. That's why everybody kind of gets, a little excited about all this thing, because there's a novelty in playing the four corner schools. They're going to Florida.
If you took out the money in this, when you asked me like where I'd like them to go, ideally matchup wise, I don't really like. They all have their pluses and minuses. Now, must see TV every week is them in the SEC, obviously, but. Like, if you put them in the Big Ten, where a lot of Florida State fans want to go because they want to thumb their nose at the SEC, well, most of those games are going to bore the crap out of me, too. Like, am I going to, like, when somebody asks me who's Florida State playing, you fired up and be like, I don't know, Purdue, Minnesota. Like, I mean, USC, Oregon, Ohio State, Nebraska, like, yay. But, I mean, that's only some of them. And then the rest of them are going to be like,
well, I think
Iowa,
To me, it's always made sense. Well, now that Baylor kind of has a footprint sort of in Florida with not Baylor, that the Big 12 has a footprint in Florida with the, with UCF, thank you, sorry. Yeah. And trying to get on board with more teams, or always have been rumored to more teams. The regionality is less so, but the regionality for Florida State and Clemson always made more sense with the SEC. To me, in my mind's eye, I can just see Florida State playing Georgia more so than I can see Florida State going to Tech.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. But to go all the way back to your question of like who is right and wrong, I think it's more of a question of like who is less wrong.
Yeah.
In all of this. And I think to that point, because of the success and the popularity of the programs, who is less wrong in my mind's eye are the schools. But to that end, again, like I was saying, you did sign a deal. You had to have known that going to 2036 without renegotiating.
That's where I get confused. Like, I get that
2036. You may not be alive in 2036. Why'd you do that?
Well, I mean, you're going to sign a like at the time was like an 18-year grant of rights in 2016 or 2014. Like they signed a 20-year grant of rights in 2014, whatever it was. Like they essentially signed a 20-year grant of rights, and then no one else did one like that. Like, not even the Big 12. Not even the Big 12.
Actively
falling apart when that happened. Like. They'd lost 4 teams. They didn't even do a 20-year grant of rights. So if I was them and looking at that, especially when they renewed it again, I'd been like, well, it just shows a remarkable lack of foresight. And also, university presidents really shouldn't be making these decisions. They really shouldn't. This world changed around them. And they all had jobs that were like, well, we just got to make sure that we're, solvent and above water and our programs are taken care of and we're compliant with these laws and people like what we're doing and we put effort into it. But they never thought of it like, oh, hey, it's going to be this massive big business. Mm-hmm. And then when you come and tell them like, hey, here's what's going on. And like, well, you know what we should do? We should sign a 20-year grant of rights. That way no one can leave. And then none of them go like, well, what if it happens in between now and then? And they're like, pish posh.
Why would that happen?
Why would that? It's happened.
This isn't going to turn into $1 billion industry.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then
what are you going to do? Stab me? Said man who was stabbed.
The second deal was pretty much they sold their soul for the ACC network. They wanted the network so bad.
Which is like 3 channels on a cable package, and maybe you get more stuff on ESPN+.
Yeah. So
sometimes it's on YouTube TV.
Yeah. So they did that, and the SEC network had launched just before it, and so they were excited, like,
Watch
we
Duke
can do
baseball on ACC Network, and it's a webcam set up behind the backstop.
this.
Yeah.
They certainly don't put as much promotion into it, and that's their prerogative. It's their product. But I do think, and this is about of the WNBA or anybody else that they have, ESPN kind of promotes like what's trendy and hot, which I understand, but they also don't seem to have a baseline for everything else. Like, they'll let their promotion, like if they decided we're going to talk about Bronny James on every show all day long, they'll let the baseline for everything else drop down, as opposed to keeping everything at, look, the glass has to be filled at least this full all the time. And, sometimes it'll be fuller and sometimes it'll be at the line, but it's never going below the line. But there are times where they're like, yeah, this is just here. And that's never been the case for the SEC, and certainly they've earned that. Craig brought up a point yesterday in response to Dabo Swinney saying, why don't we have an effing Feinbaum? Which, good for him asking that question, which is also weird. Is like, why don't we have a shill, And
why don't we have a mouthpiece?
Taken from a guy who I'm almost sure what cable news he watches. I get, like, Dabo's concern about not having a shill in his corner when it comes to the conference.
Is that one on cable?
Maybe not anymore. But
that's all streaming.
But I think, but he's right in that like ESPN didn't have a Feinbaum for the ACC, but the SEC has also lucked into Feinbaum. Yeah. Feinbaum, given another path in life, would have been the Connor Stallions of the SEC. Like, clandestinely doing things, had things not turned his way. Because he is that passionate about the league and that it's better than everyone else, that before ESPN was even involved with Paul Feinbaum at all, he was just a radio host in Birmingham.
Right. I was going to ask, how did it start? Because
suckling at the teat of all things SEC, particularly Alabama. And when Alabama got great again, then it was,
timing was inevitable.
It was compound V, just right into Paul Feinbaum.
Finished
right?
that show last night, by the way. Yeah. Great ending.
Just absolute, superhero juice into him.
Yeah.
And then he becomes this other thing.
ESPN absorbs the show.
ESPN absorbs the show and puts him on the SEC network. The ACC's never had such a thing because normal, rational people, even the people who are the most slanted towards one thing, would be like, well, that's a bit much. Right? Like, so it's hard to create. So the SEC...
We can't be talking this crazy about NC State now.
The SEC has lucked into Paul Feinbaum. Like, that's maybe what Dabo Swinney didn't get. And maybe I didn't quite understand it until Craig put it the way he did yesterday about, like, well, Paul Feinbaum was there before. He just had been doing this, and I think
I'm sure you can find super passionate people about what is happening in the ACC, but
nothing to that level.
No, right? Like, nobody's
nothing
going
to that level,
going that deep into the inner workings of, I don't know, name a school. I keep using Wake Forest, but like that feels
Boston College,
right? Yeah, punching down.
Yeah.
At Wake Forest, but I'm just saying, like, nobody's going that deep and is like, well, did you see what the boosters did over in that direction? But in the SEC, it seems to be, and maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, that, and I feel like a lot of things with the SEC are a self-fulfilling prophecy, but yeah, maybe it's just we have this guy that is that passionate, so in turn, we're going to find the craziest people that then feed that show and make it what it is, of like Dale in Alabama calling in.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not, like, there's no way to recreate with any kind of genuine intent what Paul Feinbaum has done. And as a person who hates everything he does, I still credit him for creating what he did. Because I can't... We're all kind of shills for something. Like, we all have it in us. But the difference is that some people were like, well, I'm not gonna do that. Like, that's just silly. There are people who, especially in the media, who just know their bread is buttered by being unabashed. The thing I like is never wrong.
Right.
The thing I like is never wrong. And then, because you've lived that, then the thing you like does something stupid or bad or horrible. And you're like, well, let me tell you why somebody else made them do that.
Now you're dug in.
Yeah. Somebody else made them do that. Like, no. We're all people of free will. You know, like, there's, like, people make their choices. Like, this is why, like, and which is why you hear people in the SEC media, like, every time it comes down to the SEC versus somebody else, they can have the, yeah, but, you know, this is better over here. Mm-hmm. And they are buoyed by their national championships, but they're buoyed by one program in particular. Mm-hmm. And that's where you will net, like, the SEC people, well, I mean, they're part of the SEC. Yeah, but, you know, had a couple of times another team won that, you guys wouldn't have the same juice that you have right now. Just because Nick Saban was so great, you know, and he has almost singularly made the entire league better, and it was already really good.
You think he gets a cut of those revenue shares?
He should.
He better.
He better, because look.
No. Kentucky, I need yours too.
Okay, say Nick Saban never comes back to the SEC, and Alabama stays in there, like, hire a coach, like, he's okay, maybe win some games, you know, kind of rotating what they were for 15 years before he got there, between Gene Stallings and him, whatever it was. So say Alabama never gets Saban back. He goes to the Dolphins, he wins 3 Super Bowls. You know, he's Belichick.
And the world is a better place, actually.
Yeah. But, like, he wins, he stays in the Dolphins. All right, I know that this is not fact, but is Georgia better than they were? Does Kirby Smart ever exist? Does LSU, out of just pure spite for losing their guy, put the pedals to the floor like they have? Look, Florida was great under Urban Meyer, but he was already Saban kind of ran him out.
I mean, I think you could, if you're going down that, you could even say, would Texas be back because Sark would have not gone through the rehabilitation program? Would Ole Miss be in a position to have the best season arguably in their history this year because Lane Kiffin went through that? There's so many variables.
Nick Saban school for coaches that want to learn how to coach good and do other things good too.
Yeah, absolutely. So the SEC has been totally rebuilt or accelerated by Nick Saban. And, you know, not to say that none of those schools would have won or not. Somebody's got to.
What's the principle of if in a vacuum something is, or a vacuum is left, something has to fill its place?
Yeah.
I forget what the name of that principle is.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just making that pseudoscience. But like, maybe, you know,
okay,
maybe it's Jordan. Like, maybe Rick gets off the schneid or whatever.
Yeah,
and
but it's probably not.
It's not to that level.
The next level dominance that Alabama was.
Yeah, it's not Bear Bryant 2.0.
It's not what that is. That would not have happened. He's singular figure in college football history in that regard. And that in the 85 scholarship limit era, and whatever rules were made, he adjusted to them, which a lot of the greats didn't. You know, Bobby Bowden got too old to recruit because it all started going online. Right?
Jimbo Fisher.
Jimbo Fisher.
Who we'll talk about in a minute.
Who we'll talk about later in the show. Jimbo Fisher looked like he was on this ascendancy of like, man, this is the next wave of coaches. And then he decided, well, I figured out how to win a national championship, and that's the only way that I'm going to do it. When you just look at Georgia's too. I can tell you those teams were both different in a lot of regards in the way that they found ways to win games. The team last year was, only lost one game, and they were still different in the way that they did it. They adapted. Nick Saban, look at the awful game that they won against LSU. That was
all-time sleeper.
That was the worst championship game I have ever watched in any sport. And the second worst was that North Carolina Gonzaga basketball championship game where the refs were like, this is our day. We whistle
Go
now.
Go out there and make it about you.
We whistle now. We whistle later. We whistle all night.
Some would argue the Baylor-Gonzaga game, but for a lot of people down here, it was great.
No, like it was just because it was just nothingness. It's just this like that Gonzaga North Carolina game turned into a free throw contest, and it was nothing. The LSU Alabama national championship game, which the SEC can tout as, that was 2 SEC teams in, they won that one either way.
True.
It was terrible for football. It was like you caused a blight on the game. Let's not forget that. The whole reason that we finally got people on board with a playoff is because your 2 teams that made their way in on the old system ruined it. Ruined it and broke it.
With a prehistoric rock fight.
Yeah, that was terrible.
I fell asleep.
Yeah.
It was back when I could stay up forever.
And because of your BS marketing campaign, especially back then, when it wasn't even to the point that it is now, you passed over some teams. LSU got no bonus for winning the conference and beating Alabama earlier. Their reward,
also a bad game.
Their reward should have been, we get to play someone else.
Yes.
Because we beat them. We won the conference title game. They didn't even play in this mofo. And we're here. And then the computers were like, no. Greg, I guess it was Mike Slive back then.
Yeah, it was Slive.
Yeah. Mike Slive controls us too. And so then they set about the playoff. And the playoff was set up to totally benefit the SEC anyway. Because they're like, look, okay, we'll agree to it, but only if we still kind of control everything. And
only if we get 2 out of the 4 every year.
So Nick Saban is the reason the SEC is the way it is now. And without him, I mean, who knows?
Again, down the line, going all the way back to the ACC, there is no SEC network. There is no Feinbaum. There is no mega multi-million-dollar deal with ESPN to steal them from CBS now to then be on the worldwide leader touted.
Yeah, because if you take him out, and that's how lucky they are to have him. There should be a statue of Nick Saban on every SEC campus. Bottom line.
There might as well be.
Everybody in Mississippi State said, well,
No, look, they should change it from the South, the Saban Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
Like the SSEC, the Saban Southeast Conference.
No, NSC.
Yeah.
Nick Saban Conference.
The Nick Saban Conference. Because everything that they've done since he got there and into the future is because of him. And they would not have had a dynasty like that if not for him. There would have been really good SEC teams, and they would have probably won a lot of these deals anyway, right?
Yeah.
They probably would. They would not have won as much, They
probably have about half as what they have right now.
You would have seen some Ohio States and Clemson's and another FSU, maybe a Notre Dame in there, like USC, like Oklahoma. God, Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma for real.
Here's the person who regrets, like the fan base that should regret Nick Saban the most is Oklahoma, because when he shot the adrenaline into the SEC that he shot, now off the heels of Urban Meyer as well. Like Urban Meyer and Nick Saban and what they shot into that league, that I think hurt Oklahoma more than anyone else because they were always right there. They're in the playoff. They're always in contention. But then they run up against an Alabama team, and they have to have an all-time great battle. The Georgia game, my God.
Yeah.
Like those things. Yeah, Oklahoma is the one who suffered the most because of Nick Saban and Urban Meyer, because, Urban Meyer did beat them after all. But
LSU destroyed them before the national championship run.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, all of that.
And 1 million Oklahomans all cried out, and then we're silent.
Yeah. They're the ones who, more so than Texas. Oklahoma, when Texas called up and said, hey, the SEC wants us, and we can't beat them, we're going to join them. We have to. We get there,
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
I'm sure they told Texas, I know you guys haven't experienced this since 2009, but you guys lost to Alabama. They lost to Nick Saban,
Dude,
too.
It's hell over there. Have y'all
2009, you might remember this, but that was a long time ago. So it's been 12 years. But in that 12 years, every time we go over there, we think that something good's going to happen, and it doesn't. Mm-hmm. We're all excited, oh, hey, we got the Heisman Trophy winner. And they're like, this year.
Cool.
Yeah. And they all said, so?
Good deal. All right.
Yeah.
I think we'll pair you with a nice Chianti.
Yeah.
We're just going to eat you alive.
I can't wait to get a bike on Christmas. Oh no, socks!
Yep, exactly.
They have holes in them. What happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So